GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like.
Absolutely.
On Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway,
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 11 o'clock, you're with GB News. In a moment, headliners. But first, let's bring you the very latest news headlines. And our top story on GB News tonight, the Metropolitan Police has apologised for not arresting the former officer Wayne Couzens before he murdered Sarah Everard. Couzens has been sentenced to a further 19 months today after pleading guilty to 3 charges of indecent exposure. The crimes happened in the months before he kidnapped, raped and killed Miss Everard in March 2021. The 50-year-old is already serving a whole life sentence, and the force said his behaviour should make everyone in policing hang their heads in shame. Well, our other top story tonight on GB News, charities are warning thousands of asylum seekers will be left permanently in limbo under new government plans to tackle illegal migration. The new laws would ban those crossing the English Channel in small boats from claiming asylum and from returning to the UK. The government's promised to provide more safe routes. 3,000 people have made the journey so far this year. That's nearly double the year before. The Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, says the government isn't doing enough.
We need action to stop the dangerous boat crossings that are putting lives at risk and also undermining border security. That's why we've called for a new cross-border police unit to go after the criminal gangs that are really driving this, as well as a new agreement with France and an overhaul of the asylum system to end hotel use.
Police in South Wales investigating a fatal car crash at the weekend have referred themselves to the Independent Office for Police Conduct. 3 young people were killed and 2 were critically injured, but the car wasn't found until 2 days after the group was reported missing. That's despite being metres off a main road. Eve Smith and Darcy Ross from Newport and Raphael Jean from Cardiff died in the accident, and Sophie Russon and Shane Loughlin remain in a critical condition in hospital. A friend has publicly criticised the police for not acting quickly enough. Firefighters have voted overwhelmingly to accept a new pay offer, ending the prospect of strike action. The deal is for a 7% pay increase, backdated to July last year, plus an additional 5% from July. 96% of Fire Brigade union members accepted the offer, but the General Secretary said it was another real terms pay cut. And perhaps slightly surprising for this time of year, a yellow weather warning for snow and for ice is in place across large parts of the United Kingdom. The Meteorological Office has this evening issued alerts for much of the south of England, the Midlands, South Wales and Northern Ireland. And the alert began at 9 o'clock this evening and lasts right the way through the night until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. There's already been a warning in place for northern and eastern Scotland earlier on in the day, as well as one for the northeast of England, where we believe it's already snowing. And Tuesday, we're told, is expected to be the coldest night of the year. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're with GB News, the People's Channel. Time for headliners.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Thank you, Polly. Welcome to Headliners. This is your first look at Tuesday's most enticing stories. Joining me tonight, two stalwarts off the long white desk, Josh Howie and Nick Dixon. So, gentlemen, great to have you here. How's your day been? OK?
Excellent, thank you. How's your day been?
You're looking very well coordinated.
We called each other on the way in. It was I'm going to go pink, you're going to go white shirt.
Yeah. He's going to go trim beard, you're going to go Methuselah.
I was supposed to be host. That was the only
mistake. I'm sorry. It'll happen. It'll happen. Right, let's have a look at Tuesday's front pages. The Daily Mail we go with first. We will push human rights law to the limit. Ministers say they won't break but will stretch boundaries of international law in a crackdown on Channel migrants. The Guardian revealed biggest super-emitting methane leaks threatening climate. There's a potential for some very vulgar humour there. We'll be skipping around later. The Times, PM plans annual cap on number of refugees, and a picture there of Anita Rani, who's been installed as Bradford University's Chancellor. The Telegraph, block funds for MPs who don't toe the line on lockdown, and further revelations from the Matt Hancock WhatsApp messages pictured there in a very dramatic form. The Sunak plan to stop Channel migrants may be unworkable, Tories warn him. Tories are warning him of that. The Daily Star, on the other hand, have gone with the Gong Father. I'll make you an offer you can't refuse. Knight my dad. That's Boris Johnson. Those were your front pages. Let's take a look. So let's kick off things with the front page of the Times, Josh.
Yep, so on the side they have Met. We could have arrested PC before he killed Everard. This is a statement from someone we've heard from before who was one of the victims of him flashing. And it turns out this was 3 days before he actually killed Everard. Yeah. And she basically said, yeah, if they'd done something, then that murder would have been prevented. This is 3 days before. No one ever... He came into a restaurant, into McDonald's, he flashed himself. No one... They reported it with his licence and registration, all that stuff. And no one ever came to question her or
it's so bizarre as well. I mean, that's just not even a normal sort of sexual offence, is it?
And it happened really a bunch of times, but...
Yeah.
I mean, sexual offences are sexual offences, and they escalate.
Yeah.
So this is just... It's ridiculous what this guy got away with. And also, they knew about stuff. He was driving around naked a few years before, below the waist.
Yeah.
And he just sort of got away with it. If you're a policeman and you've got access to a gun and all the other privileges of your authority, and if anything sexual, you should just be out.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you
So
there.
the other story is PM plans annual cap on number of refugees. This is more of the plan we heard yesterday. And obviously the Tory government and this country, frankly, has to get on top of the immigration situation.
Yeah.
Whether this is the best means to do it, we'll have to see. But one of the things they're talking about is having this cap on refugees. But of course, say someone comes over, you know, once that's broken, that cap, for whatever reason.
Once they're over, they won't know. I mean, who knows? But there is, I've heard at least two complaints or objections raised. One, which is that the people who are paying to get into these boats are not aware of these caps. They're not aware of the legislation or the tweaks or the messaging from the government. They will take their chances, and once they're here, we've demonstrated we don't have the willpower or the efficiency to get rid of them. And secondly, that they will possibly just get into trucks again. Although I think that is possibly a weaker argument, because it was our success in preventing them coming over in trucks which has led to them seeking the Dingish routes. What do you have on that, Nick?
I don't have a great deal on that one because I've only just seen it now and half the story's cut off by the
Yes.
I do have more. I do have a point in the Everard one, which is just that one is sceptical that the police will ever learn. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's on the same level. Today they've just arrested Isabel Vaughan-Spruce again, who just got off for praying in a so-called buffer zone. She was proved to have done nothing wrong. But then they've arrested her again. We have a policeman today saying that it's an offence. Today he's saying you're praying in your head and that's the offence. And so it's just extra infuriating that we miss people like Cousins, but we arrest someone silently praying in their head. It's
all organisations do tend to close ranks to an extent that I think eludes people who aren't members of those sort of organisations. Very similar with the South Yorkshire Police, you know, during the 80s and, you know, under the tyrannical reign of this extraordinary... You know, they remember there were endless amounts of scandals. Hillsborough was the most famous, but they'd been... I think they'd been implicated in the heavy-handed policing of the pickets and so on during the miners' strike. Maybe getting some of these things confused. There is just this tendency of organisations, especially the police, but also military organised. The Catholic Church would be another example. Yeah, they will not have it. They don't want to hear about it.
And what troubles me, as we've seen with the lockdown files, is there any law that the police won't? And I'm sure there are good police people, of course there are, but is there any law that they won't, act on? We saw in the lockdown just so many absurd laws they would just act on.
What about you? Got the Guardian, Nick, for the front page.
Revealed biggest super-emitting methane leaks threatening climate. Now, I thought the biggest super-emitter of methane was the Guardian newspaper, but turns out it's not. That was a joke about the Guardian, guys. So it turns out it's these super-emitter sites, so more than 1,000 super-emitter sites gushed the potent greenhouse gas into the atmosphere in 2022. And it turns out the worst leak spewed pollution at a rate equivalent to 67 million running cars. It makes you think, why bother with electric cars? Why eat the bugs and be happy? Just why are we doing any of this? Of course, this is according to The Guardian, so always a pinch of salt with climate stuff, and I recommend reading the Daily Skeptic, Chris Morrison, for the truth on all climate.
But what has it identified the nature of this super emitter? It just says it's a super emitter. What exactly is it?
Basically, it's mostly from sites, from sites where they're getting oil or gas already, where there are leaks coming out. So it's a leak issue, essentially.
Yeah, okay.
Some deliberate, some is accidental.
And it's Russia, North America seems to be some of the biggest sites, and also one of the countries, Turkmenistan, it seems to be the biggest site there.
And if it's worse than 67 million cars, it's presumably worse than a few cattle farm as well, which is we're always being shamed into not eating burgers because of the methane.
No, it's a huge thing, and what they say is it's an easy win for them to essentially, if they can get on top of this and stop these leaks, it makes a 0.3 degree difference in terms of that 1.5 degrees that they're trying to limit the heating to. So it could be a good thing that they've identified this, and we'll see if actually people will do anything about it.
I remember 20 is one of the first things I heard about climate change after the very initial thing about carbon dioxide was the methane that was going to be released from the tundra. I don't know if that's still do you hear about that? The permafrost. Once the permafrost melts up in northern Siberia, there's loads of methane, which is basically decomposing mammoths. Which is it's just going to sort of there's going to be a vicious cycle, and that'll be the end of us. But
none of it's happened, though, has it?
Well, I think it's good that we got to the end of the story without doing any fart jokes.
Yeah, basically.
I kind of did one, but it was a very highbrow one.
Did you want to speak about this? There's a horrific story on the front page of The Guardian about 3 teenagers who appear to have been caught in a car crash that they couldn't find the car, but I don't think there's much to say about it, is there?
No.
Josh, let's do the Telegraph now.
Block funds for MPs who don't toe line on lockdown. So the drip of these WhatsApp messages continue to come out. They've got, 100,000 of these? So I'm assuming that the Daily Telegraph are going to just be doing one of these for every day for the next 20 years or so.
Very much as they did with MPs' expenses.
Yeah,
the first week or two is exciting, and then after a while you go, oh, I see, claim for that kebab then.
Yeah, well, this is one of these things. I mean, this is important. This is one of their MPs basically being threatened. When they were going into lockdown in the end of 21, was it? Or Christmas 21? They were essentially... 2020, sorry, at the end of 2020. And some of the Tory MPs were going to rebel against these hardline restrictions. And they basically said, we're going to threaten this one MP who's got a majority of 105 with not opening up this centre to help disability... You know, basically a thing that's needed.
One of his pork barrel...
Yeah, Learning Disability Hub is essentially... So they were basically threatening that to keep him in line, which is crazy that's what they were... That's the lengths they're willing to go to... Well,
to achieve that end, although I think that kind of length It's pretty common, probably.
Oh,
in parliamentary activity.
whipping.
It's just for this particular end, isn't it? What do you think?
If you watch House of Cards, you think, whipping people, this is what happens.
Yeah.
But this is a particularly disgusting and grotesque example because you are shutting down a needed service for disabled people and you're using it to enact a horrific policy, which is lockdown restrictions. And you're doing it in Bury, my mum's hometown. So it's like the policy that seems almost targeting me. I know, it's so annoying. It's classic Hancock. Sort of, there's this debate, is he incompetent or evil? Why can't he be both? I mean, this is a classic both from Hancock.
Oh, I agree with that. That is always a false dichotomy. People definitely usually are incompetent and evil. Very, very rarely that they're neither, like one or the other.
Or clever evil.
Yeah, that's a fiction. Most people are drawn to evil because it's a way of achieving their ends, which they're not capable of doing illegitimate because they're not clever enough.
Yeah.
The evil genius thing is a myth.
Evil stupid, that's me.
And finally, let's take a look, talking of evil stupid, at the Daily Star. They've gone with the Gong Father. We will be covering that story. Well, we will cover it now, but I mean, is this an example of Johnson's extraordinary levels of corruptness and incompetence, or is it?
Well, it's classic comic. Boris, but the Star's gone with the Gong Father. I'll make you an offer you can't refuse, and they've just put "Knight my dad" to make it absolutely clear. And there's a little speech bubble of Stanley Johnson at the back going, "Where the Tory mafia?" Just in case anyone didn't get it, where the Tory mafia. And it's obviously Johnson's trying to knight his dad, is the rumour, and his sister's pretty much confirmed it. And of course, in the past, he's knighted his brother and people like that, and friends of his, so it's not particularly shocking.
No.
I'm not that bothered. They keep trying to get Boris. They've already got him in the Sue Gray coup, as Jacob Rees-Mogg called it.
Well, listen, Caligula made his horse a senator. I think this is
there you go.
They
got rid of him.
Comparison, isn't it?
I'm a sort of mixture. On the one hand, I think it's kind of not that important. On the other hand, I go scorched earth and think no one involved in any of the lockdown things should have anything to do with public office again. So in a way, you know what I mean? In a way, I wouldn't have anything to do with Boris again, but not for this so much, but for everything else.
I'll be honest with you, if they had half the competence, again, and efficiency of the Corleone family, I would be quite happy with the Tories at the moment. I would swap those out.
Lovely oil.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the point is about Stanley Johnson is that what's he exactly getting it for? What's he achieved before, apart from having a bunch of kids?
They've gestured in the direction of the environment.
I mean, I really should be knighted. I've got a bunch of kids, I can do that.
That is the front page is done. Join us in a couple of minutes. We'll be looking at sex bans, Fauci fibbing, and the word woman is coming back into legalese. We'll see you again in a couple of minutes. Thank you.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Click that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
And welcome back to Headliners with me, Simon Evans. I'm totally blessed to have the mighty talents of Josh Howie and Nick Dixon joining me, so let's get straight back into it. Kicking this section off, Nick, we have the latest tidbit filleted from the great WhatsApp leak by The Telegraph, which concerns the delicacy of imposing a sex ban during a lockdown.
Yeah, more infuriating news from the lockdown files. So sex ban during lockdown sparked fierce debate. Leaked WhatsApp messages reveal, and it's Whitty being actually relatively sensible, Chris Whitty, in saying we can't really do a sex ban on couples. He's saying let's say they probably should try not to do it, as well, if there's an elderly person especially. Whereas Valance is saying really they shouldn't do it, and Hancock's saying, goes on telly even after Whitty has said let's be realistic, and he basically says you have to be in separate households or you have to live together. And he says you should test the strength of their relationships. Like, why is Matt Hancock telling us to test the strength of our relationship? Why is it up to him to tell you when to move in? So this was that mad period. Yeah. And it's just incredible to think back
To be clear, they weren't suggesting you don't have sex if you do live together. They were
saying
right?
Stay in separate households and don't see each other if you don't live together. Or just move in together and make that decision. That was Hancock's take on it. And it's just so mad to think back, to think that the government had this power. It was mad at the time. I said it at the time. It's mad now. And what really is really disturbing to me is the Sunday Times just had a poll that 39% of people, I think it was 37 or 39, still think that lockdowns weren't strict enough. And 34% that they were about right. Admittedly, this was from YouGov, so highly questionable. But when you look at it and you go, hang on, they were doing sex bans, and you're still going, no, it wasn't strict enough.
I remember lots of people. That was the odd thing about the whole dispute, was that on the one hand, everyone's going, oh, the government are doing a terrible job. But if you asked individual people, they would all take you off in different directions. You know, some people felt it wasn't strict enough, others thought it was draconian. But I do remember the sex ban was what got Neil Ferguson, wasn't it?
If you live by the sword, literally.
Yes, exactly.
So
there
were
some positives. I enjoyed that. Yeah.
I mean, the thing that I can't find in this article, and I've read it a few times, is when's the sex ban going to end?
Yeah, I know. It's about time now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been 2-3 years now.
Yeah.
My wife keeps on saying she's waiting for the government.
It's got the big sign on the bedroom door.
But it is weird reading about, like, support bubbles. You're like, it's such a it feels like a different... it is a different reality, but you read words like that, you're like, gosh, we had to choose our support bubble.
It's going to be quite a good thing, because I'm in my 50s. I am already entered that age now where things that happened to me in this part of my life are quite quickly forgotten. You know, we all, as we get into our 50s, we start to remember our youth and our early manhood with a great deal more accuracy and detail. My son, who's 15 now, he will remember those 2 years for the rest of his life. That is a scar he will never get rid of.
I know, for sure. My kids are going to remember those 2 years of me screaming at them, trying to teach them, failing massively.
Yeah, wherever they live now, that's still a memory that they have.
I remember your youth and manhood in detail. But the danger is if you forget, this all happens again. That's the problem.
That is true. Book of laughter and forgetting. Josh, Daily Mail now, the choppy waters of American medical skullduggery. But I would say there's a good rule: never trust a man whose name rhymes with ouchie.
Indeed. Emails show Dr. Fauci commissioned a February 2020 paper to disprove COVID leaked from a Wuhan lab. So it's been interesting, this, because there's been, again, this kind of drip revelation of the facts coming out. And as someone wrote on Twitter, like, quite soon after the fact, like, you would expect to see some of this stuff years from now, but the fact that it's still just only a couple of years ago. So when people were saying, oh, there's a big lab in Wuhan and that's where it came from, it looks like there's obviously a connection there. And immediately this thing came out, this paper that sort of went, no, we've got the world's best scientists, they've looked at it, and you're a conspiracy crank if you think it was from a lab.
And it came from Fauci.
And now it turns out there are emails that the Republicans have, the House Republicans are looking into that have revealed that he's the one who actually commissioned this thing, and he didn't mention it when he put it up on air.
And this is relevant because, if I remember rightly, Fauci is accused at any rate, and I don't think seriously denies being implicated in the gain-of-function research, which was taking place in the lab, because it wasn't just a Chinese lab. It was in China. It was staffed by Chinese scientists. The funding and the programs and so on were an international, and Fauci was involved in that, which is pretty dubious.
There's a very shocking email, particularly from 8th of Feb 2020, saying our main work over the last couple of weeks has been focused on trying to disprove any type of lab theory. Now, why do you do that? If you're a scientist, you try and disprove your thesis to try and test it's rock solid. You don't try and disprove the one that you, for political reasons, you want to not be true. You know, it's the opposite of what scientists are supposed to do. Absolutely disgusting. And have you seen Joe Rogan's clip on Fauci? That he's saying he tries to deflect by just talking incredibly slowly when he's being grilled.
Yeah, he just looks as if he's talking to an idiot, doesn't he? He does that thing.
I think there are more damning emails here. There's Farrar, who was the head of the British non-profit, the Wellcome Trust. They were trying to they said initially in the report that it was unlikely that it came from, and he changed it to, so can you change to improbable? And then, even then, they wanted the WHO wanted to push it further. The WHO, one of their main principal funding comes from China. So all this stuff, and China it turns out they've deleted like all this stuff in the lab, and they haven't revealed anything.
And I still find it very hard to believe that all of this was done partly because they were afraid that if people thought it had come from the lab, that would initiate racist reprisals against Chinese civilians.
Maybe financial reprisals.
Possibly. I don't think it would. I cannot see that it could plausibly have aroused any more antipathy towards the Chinese as a general collective of humanity than the idea that it had arisen from the meeting bats in an open market, which is a vastly more abrasive image to me. If like a disrespectful and reckless activity than having a lab.
It makes you wonder why they didn't commission a separate report on bats. Like, can you give me something on bats as well, or how a bat probably did it?
Nick, Times now, finally some good news anyway out of the medical community, at least for them as likes living.
Yes, this is cancer death rates are 10% lower than 5 years ago. This is from the Annals of Oncology. And apparently there's an 11.41% drop in men and 9.79% in women.
Yeah.
And, so it's basically just good news. I'm not exactly sure why, because... But there you go. I don't know what to say about
it. It's the vaccine. It's the COVID vaccine. It also cures cancer.
Must be that.
I guess it is just an improvement.
I should say Ofcom, it doesn't.
It's an improvement in cancer treatments, which is good. But I suppose also it does go against what we might have becoming suspicious of, which is the lack of treatments available to people during the lockdowns. And
but this is a larger trend, and they seem to be indicating it's because they're diagnosing the stuff earlier.
Yeah.
The earlier you diagnose it, the better the stance of treatment and whatnot.
So let's move on anyway, because we don't like good news. Daily Mail now. The government...
His nickname.
The Josh Meister.
I like to be the Josh.
The government has plans to build the world's most powerful supercomputer. I should be excited about this, but I feel worried.
Well, let's see if it happens. Let's see if the money comes through. Right. Government to announce heavy investments in artificial intelligence, nuclear fusion and genetics. The UK is investing £360 million, although some of that 117 has already been allocated to AI. And the idea is this is what someone's saying here, this is the head of the Francis Crick Institute, only by being a leading science nation can the UK drive a sustainable economy.
I think it's a good bet. I've been saying we should be doing more of this ever since we raced ahead with the vaccines, of course. Kate Bingham gave us a lead there. That gave us a lot of soft power. The Cambridge University, the Life Sciences Centre there, and they're creating more connectivity with Oxford University and through the Milton Keynes sort of hub and everything, with a Silicon Fen. This does feel like this is potentially a really strong growth area. I don't think 360 million is nearly enough. They should be chatting...
Other countries, China, America...
30 billion at this
Absolutely,
kind of thing,
that's exactly what they're doing, that kind of figures.
Because, I mean, HS2, which is a complete waste of money and a desecration of our beautiful countryside, that's costing about 100 billion. in total. I mean, that's the sort of level of investment in infrastructure that makes a difference.
We could have done like a transporter with Star Wars, Star Trek.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, I'm up for it, but I have to say, I am quite excited about this. The extraordinary, what's it called, X-scaler or something, exoscaler?
Oh, exascale computer, 1 quintillion calculations a second, which is a quintillion is one
with 18 zeros.
There we go, learning some facts.
And it's currently the fastest one is in Tennessee in America, which is quite interesting, isn't it? You would have thought that would be in Silicon Valley there, but no, previously in Japan.
Will it actually happen, as you say? Is it enough investment? And will we actually have people to do these jobs if we keep taxing people so highly?
Yeah.
Young people are leaving. Everyone keeps saying, if you're under 40, there's no point being in the UK. It's not actually great over 40 either. But everyone's leaving. So I wonder, it'd be great if they do it, if they really do this, but I'm sceptical.
These are the kind of industries and the kind of knowledge centres which attract people in from the outside.
Yeah,
of
because
Britain.
with our kids being in strikes at school, they're going to have no chance working there.
Ending this section with the Telegraph, Nick, and the NHS problem with the word woman has reared its head again.
Yeah, we do keep seeing similar stories. We had the Vagina Museum the other day who was saying that most people who get ovarian cancer are women, and that was incredibly annoying. But this is NHS must reinstate woman in cancer and pregnancy web pages staff demand. So it's quite significant. It's come from the staff. 1,200 NHS doctors, nurses and health practitioners have said that the language is discriminatory and harms women, so that you need to stop doing this so-called non-gendered language. So good news, people are waking up to this nonsense, people are getting sick of it, and staff are demanding that we stop this dangerous rubbish.
I think we know where you stand on this as well, Josh.
Yeah, it's a dangerous ideology that's been pushed through over the last few years by stealth, and now finally people are standing up. And they're not right-wing people, they are people who care about the outcomes of people's health, because you need to have plain language when it comes to health matters.
It's been quite interesting over the last few days seeing a few people. Andrew Sullivan is one of them. You mentioned him earlier, I think, in another context, an American columnist, highly... Oh, no, that was privately, wasn't it? But very highly paid and widely, esteemed journalist who was saying, oh, I don't know what all the fuss is about with the drag queen story hour. It's just like pantomime dames and Dame Edna and so on. And then actually saw some clips of what was going on and was appalled. I think quite a few people who have previously just had a sort of patrician, oh, this is just a bit of...
Yeah. Well, David Aronovich made that claim as well. Yes. It's not similar to pantomimes, and people are waking up to it now.
Not that this is similar to drag queens, but there's a sort of sense that a lot of people are going, oh, it's fine, it doesn't really matter. And then you go, my God, this like the whole... Somebody shared a thread from Swindon Council today, which is just all of their literature had been rewritten to be more gender neutral and sort of sensitive towards 0.1% of the population at the expense of over 50% of them.
Yeah, I think the Isle of Rice moment was a red pill for a lot of people.
Still doesn't make me want to go to Swindon. I'm not going to Swindon.
That's true. That's part 2 in the bag. Coming up, we have a news story about us, we have white rappers, and we have Catholic women. What an extraordinary combination. See you in a couple of minutes.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat.
Did you know,
All
Kate
sorts of
Moss?
women. Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
And welcome back to Headliners. It's the Telegraph now. Nick, a chance for Headliners to feel pretty good about itself. One of our regulars in action here.
Yep, Mr. Steve Allen. So this is a lawyer supporting Matt Hancock slips up in GB News interview over WhatsApp leaks, and this clip has gone pretty viral on the old internet, and I think we've got it here.
I'm in a position to be able to comment on this and mention that I'd been approached by Matt Hancock. I asked you not to mention that.
As a courtesy to the lady who approached me to act for MH, Matt Hancock, I would be grateful if it was mentioned that he asked me to act for him. So it seems that you actually...
You're absolutely right, that it's my mistake. I missed out the knot. I take all of that back.
School classic error. I mean, he missed out the knot. The knot was a pretty crucial word. Can you not mention that Hancock asked me, and it changed to can you?
I don't know how you can miss out the knot. I mean, I suppose just the typing, but it's an odd because wasn't done by phone. I don't think, was it? It looked like it was a proper email.
An email, yeah. It's a huge typo for a lawyer. Yeah,
it's a bad quite one. A significant. It almost feels like it's like some kind of psychological self-destruct.
Yeah. The frustrating thing is, and the reason it was satisfying to sort of point out his mistake is that he's having a go at GB News and saying it's very poor journalism.
He was
very poor journalism.
He was really rude and caustic throughout for 5 minutes.
And Steve Allen dealt with it very, very well, our own Steve Allen. And the lawyer said the audience had been throwing poo left, right and centre at Matt Hancock, which might be a suitable punishment for Hancock after everything he's done. What do you think?
Absolutely fair, yeah.
A good old-fashioned poo throwing.
Have you ever tried to type a message on a phone just with your thumb and it expands certain words and changes the meaning to the exact opposite in the other direction? I quite often write the word can and it changes it to can't.
So maybe this is what happened.
But I'm just thinking, I can't imagine that it would just drop a word altogether. I can't see how that could happen. I'm still slightly puzzled. But anyway.
Maybe it is Freudian, but fair dues to Steve, because he really, if you watch the full 7 minutes, he maintained his calm, he kept on asking questions. And there was a serious point there, which was this guy was trying to basically say, look, they signed a non-disclosure, and really, and basically Steve was saying, well, in certain circumstances, when it's a big enough situation, the whole point is we need to learn what happened so we can hopefully stop that kind of thing happening again.
I think it's a fair debate to be had, but yes, well done to Steve for maintaining his cool and reaping rewards. Times now. And Josh, we have good news for mums who can't quite believe that their little ones are all grown up and have left home because they haven't. They can't.
This is terrifying. I'm just like, all I'm doing is looking a couple of years ahead and thinking, I'm going to be free. And it doesn't seem like that's going to happen.
Never going to be free again.
Students shun university digs for home comfort. So over the last 5 or 6 years, the gap of people staying at home instead of moving away during university has gone down from 250,000 to 100,000. So there's a gap between 100,000 people who stay at home and those who go off. So this is obviously the big one here. And now they're saying that the biggest cost really now in university is the accommodation. And they're having real shortages across the country. We've talked about this before. I've got this niece who's going to go to Bristol. They're all freaking out because they want to get there accepted as soon as possible because the accommodation just runs out. And some people in Manchester University actually live in Liverpool. That's the only place they can get accommodation.
You have to come down on the shipping canal. in the morning.
No,
When our daughter is going to London, we live in Brighton, I can quite easily see her staying at home again. I mean, and just commuting, it might very well be her best chance. I do think it's an extraordinary opportunity for universities to make some money by building accommodation, you know, just getting it knocked up, you know, Nightingale Hospital style, and just renting it out. I mean, they're all strapped for cash, so they claim. This seems like an extraordinarily easy way to get some.
What is the point of university now? We know that you have to stay in your parents' house now. We already know that courses are remote. You're basically watching YouTube videos in your parents' house.
And your degree is worthless.
Your degree is worthless anyway. You get in debt. If you're a man and you look vaguely at a woman, you get done for sexual assault and your life's over. I mean, it just...
This is your personal
No, this is young men.
All good points, yeah.
Why go?
It's not the same deal it was, that's for sure. Mirror now, Nick. One might say, mirror, mirror on the wall. Who's the best rapper of them all? And is it because I's white?
Well, Melly Mel says it's not Eminem. So the Billboard did this list of greatest ever rappers, quite controversial. I've got some qualms with it. And he said Eminem's only in there because he's white.
Do you like the rap?
I do like the rap, but I like all...
Do you call it the rap?
The rap.
Yeah, that's what we call it.
The young
on the
people listen
street,
to.
the rap. So now he says Eminem's only in there because he's white. Now there's a fair point that Eminem was marketable because he's white. As he said himself, became a commodity because I'm WHITE, because MTV was so friendly to me. It's all in his rap.
Yeah.
So it's a good marketing gimmick. But then again, Vanilla Ice isn't in the top 50. So it's because he's great as well. So he is a great, great rapper. But also, I understand... It's kind of the one place in showbiz where it's an advantage to be white, isn't it? Because you stand out.
He wasn't number one, though. He was number 5 or something.
Shocking.
The other top 10 were all black. I watched the top 10 video.
Jay-Z was number 1, which I question. Kendrick was second, which is a bit of a hipster choice. Biggie was shockingly only 6. Surely Notorious B.I.G. is top 5.
Yeah, that should have been up there. I would have put Nas.
Nas was number 3.
Yeah.
Big L wasn't even in there. Big L, Josh. See, now I'm going.
Nas,
now I'm going up.
is that Lil Wayne?
Illmatic.
No,
Lil Wayne
Nas,
was 7.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Too high.
Who's Nas?
Nas did Illmatic.
He's a New York rapper.
Okay.
From the 2000s,
Right.
1990s.
Some people will be... Well,
I must have missed that one. They were going through at the top. The 2-pack was 4, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. Lauren Hill.
It's like the Stewart...
Lauren Hill was in there. She's a singer. She's not a rapper.
Yeah.
Well, she...
Mad.
If
She was a
Fugees...
Fuji
whatever.
kind of rap.
Yeah, but she doesn't really rap, does she? You have Wyclef and...
Snoop was in.
Nas is like the Stuart Lee of rapping.
okay.
Like, you know, sort of the connoisseurs.
Cool, okay, maybe I'll try it. I quite like some Kendrick Lamar, but I haven't listened to very much.
He's good, but is he number 2?
I have
above
always
Biggie?
thought... When I listen to Eminem, I do think he's pretty extraordinary.
He's a genius.
The flow, or whatever you call it, it just does seem to work to me in a way that I don't quite understand what the others are talking about. And it's just... it's just endless violence, and I don't know, it just seems
great.
a little bit more creative to me, the Eminem, the content.
Well, B.I.G. was a genius, though, wasn't he?
Was he? I don't know. Was he? Why was he? What was he so good about?
Well, storytelling about his life and stuff. And
you also employed jazz rhythms and stuff. Yeah. You're being a bit of a Philistine on this issue.
Yeah, no, I am, absolutely. All right, I'll try the B.I.G. Religious news now in the TIMES, Josh, and... a majority of Catholic women think the church should be a bit more like Mumsnet, by the sound of it.
Does sound like it, does it? Most Catholic women want radical reforms of the church to study finds. This is they questioned 17,000 women from 104 countries.
Yeah.
And this is coming as the Pope is doing a debate on what the role of women should be within the church.
Yep.
And then basically women are saying we want more control, we want to have more transparency in the governance. And that seems fair enough. 84% of women supported the reform in the church. Interestingly, Australia turned out to be one of the most conservative of the countries.
Yeah.
Whereas Ireland and Spain and Germany were actually a little bit more laissez-faire.
That's interesting, isn't it? Spain, I mean, Ireland has certainly absolutely massive polaric reversal in the culture of Ireland in my lifetime.
Yeah.
That used to be like a dark theocracy, like Iran or something when I was young. Ireland, and now it seems to be one of the wokest places around. But Australia, I think we've always misunderstood Australia in this country. They are a very conservative nation from top to bottom. As somebody once said, not descended from convicts, descended from warders.
Yeah.
And that's the...
James, but...
It wasn't actually. I've looked into it. He never said that.
He did say it.
Peter Ustinov is the likeliest candidate.
It was.
Anyway,
I'm sure Clive James
there's
said
a whole internet
anyway,
subculture dedicated to trying to determine who.
My only question here is: the women in the Catholic Church seem to want all these liberal reforms in the church. why be a Catholic then? Why not just be secular? The things they're calling for are just secular things. They want the end of, they want divorce, remarriage after a civil divorce, etc., etc. And it's just like, well, just be secular then, rather than destroy the church from within.
Well, this is the classic, activity of the left, isn't it? Kill something, wear its skin as a suit, and demand respect.
Yeah, it's called the Church of England.
Well, these women aren't necessarily of the left. You know, they want to be part of that institution still.
I don't know how much you can bring into the the Catholic Church and leave it still recognisably what it's supposed to be. But I suppose as long as the Pope's still,
Well, Pope's gone all social justice. Jordan Peterson had to correct him the other day.
Guardian now, Nick. And it seems FIFA might be about to do a U-turn, although I would have thought a Cruyff turn would be a more stylish way to evade capture.
Yeah, they love a U-turn, FIFA. So this is the Saudi sponsorship of the Women's World Cup. Obviously, a bit of a contradiction between women's football, which is the empowerment of women, versus Saudi Arabia, which is not necessarily known for the empowerment of women. No. And so they were going to be sponsoring it in Australia, and people have said, what on earth are you thinking? But now they're sort of trying to quietly drop that. And that's more or less the story.
Why would they ever think that would have been a good idea?
I know.
It's insane.
It doesn't say they are going to drop it. I mean, Australia has been very clear that they don't want it to go through, but FIFA are being very stum on this. And if you know anything about FIFA, they just care about the money, and they do not care.
What I don't understand is what the incentive is for Saudi. Saudi can't imagine they're going to get a lot of business advertising in a Women's World Cup.
Well, the cynics would call it sports washing, but they are doing a lot of sporting stuff. They did the Tommy Fury-Jake Paul fight the other day. No one was too bothered there about the ethics. They was like, show us the money.
True.
But they're trying to, put themselves on the map with all these sporting events.
Yeah, well, I suppose so. I can't imagine going on holiday to Saudi just yet. That's it for this section. The coming part, the final part, we have disastrous honeymoons, genius tattoos, and weight-challenged cats. We'll see you in a couple of minutes.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners for our final section, kicking off with The Mirror. This could be a golden start in life for a snorkeling newlywed.
Indeed. Newlywed couple sue for $5 million after being abandoned on a Hawaii snorkeling trip. They basically got on the boat.
Yeah.
And they were like, all right, we'll drive out to the... Well, drive out. Can you drive a boat? What would you do? Yeah.
Float out?
Float out to the middle of the ocean. About 40 people got off and 38 people got back on.
Yeah, roughly rounding error.
Yeah, something like that.
Error.
And then the boat went off and they were left in the sea. This is the start of many films.
Yeah, I remember it a few years ago, Deep water.
This really happened. So they swam. Luckily, they were young enough, they were a bit experienced enough. Yeah. They were like 8-foot waves, but they still made it.
It happened to my wife when that movie came out. She said she couldn't go and see it because it had happened. I think her or a friend, they were Great Barrier Reef. The boat moved off maybe 50 yards, but enough. They bobbed.
Why did you drive off?
Yeah, good question. This is before I encountered her. But, I mean, it is pretty terrifying, I suppose, because the ocean is pretty big, isn't it, when your eyes are like,
famously big, isn't it?
Yeah.
People are learning a lot tonight.
It's quite easy to experience a degree of psychological...
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure if you just breathe, you're going to float, aren't you?
Do you think $5 million, though? Do you think it's that much psychological damage?
Well, I mean, it's obviously the company won't have that much, will they? So they've pitched in high to say, we'll end you, we'll close you down, and now,
We'll take 100 quid.
Yeah, that's right.
Give us a refund.
We'll take some crockery from John Lewis off the wedding list that didn't get met. Anyway, good luck to them, obviously. Daily Mail next, Nick. More unwelcome news about the sort of thing that actually improves performance in bed.
I feel like Josh has probably chosen this story. I feel like he just searches sex on every newspaper.
Actually, I wrote it for you.
This is one of these. Yoga can help men last 3 times longer in bed, apparently. I mean, I'm shocked to find that so many... When they say 3 times longer, it adds 30 seconds. I mean...
Isn't that how long you last?
I mean,
Yoga adds 30 seconds and running adds a couple of minutes.
It's mad. Right? I didn't know so many men had this problem. I didn't know it was so fast. I mean, it sounds like
Have you ever actually timed it? It's over much more quickly than you think. It's like,
but
it's like the drug cake in reverse,
No, this seems almost like an easier life to me. I mean...
Too much effort. Oh, what? It's easier to do all this stuff or to just not do the stuff?
To not do it, just to be like these men with... They've technically got a problem, but it's quite a time-saving
Good excuse,
problem.
wouldn't it? It'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, I've got this problem. You don't really have a problem, I just want to go to sleep.
If you do a lot of yoga, what you can then do is use your big toe for the first 15 minutes and she won't even notice.
Oh, my God,
you're so subtle.
This is...
Simon used to write porn, so he slips back into it naturally.
That's a whole genre, toe porn.
Oh, my...
This
is There's a 5 a.m. repeat of this show, Simon.
I always kick in at 11:45 because I know my parents have gone to bed, bless them. They stay up for the first half in Norfolk.
And what? And you're afraid that they told you about this stuff?
Yeah, I know. Terrible influence. Anyway, is that all you want to say about that? Then you don't.
After that toe stuff, yes.
Josh, what do you do? You fast.
Well, I'm lucky because I'm circumcised.
Yeah.
And so, hey kids, good morning. But it does mean that you're less sensitive.
Staying with the male.
Sorry.
Now. That's almost like a toe. Staying with the male now. With a blackened blood blister where the nail used to be. I suppose this could work.
You're digging the hole.
In a very poor light. What have we got now? A tattoo?
I'm sweating here. I'm sweating with these.
Man has six-pack tattooed onto his stomach.
To be summer ready. What a genius thing. I think we've got a picture or a video of this guy getting this. I mean, this is a brilliant idea.
I don't know if we do have it.
Here we go.
Yeah,
so that's me.
Struggled for years to get a six-pack. That's not how you get one.
That's not it.
No, it's body
this
fat
is the idea. Look what he's going to do. He's going to go see his tattooist friend. He's going to say, look, I'm a big fatty. Here's what I want to look like.
Yeah.
Picture of me.
Oh, hello. Let's do some drawings on the tummy. And that's what that's the result.
That is amazing.
I mean, that is absolutely genius.
It's very realistic for someone who's red. I mean, he's not that colour.
It's a Native American.
His hand, his face and his arms are not that colour. That's the only problem I can see there.
He now has to go out and get horribly sunburned to the extent that it'll probably be a cancer risk. It's weird, isn't it, how they've gone for that colour? Still, it's very impressive. I would imagine, though, that tattoo extremely painful. I mean, like, that was hours and hours.
We've cut out some of the
video. Just in pain. He's like holding his face. It's all.
Would it have been any less painful to just actually like
get in the
not
gym.
eat less. But for the avoidance of doubt, as we all know, right, you don't get a six-pack from doing ab crunches.
Spot reduction is a myth. It's body fat percentage.
Exactly.
That's why I don't
we all have a six-pack under the surface.
I've got a
out.
two-pack in good light at the moment.
But what I don't have a pack. But what is he going to do if he does decide to get fit?
Yeah, good point.
He's going to have like 3D.
It'll be like those cave paintings that sort of follow the contours of the cave.
Yeah, sort of erosion and
I think this is a man that knows that's never going to happen, isn't he?
He's fully given up. Yeah, fair enough.
Telegraph now, Nick. Cats are struggling to shift their lockdown weight and they're blaming it on their owners' neighbours. Have I got right?
Yeah, and what they've done is they've tattooed a six-pack on the cat. This is a story that I thought was going to be The Guardian, but I was shocked to find it was The Telegraph. I'm tired of being told off by vets for having an overweight cat. So Mr. Whispers, which is the person who's written the article. No, Mr. Whispers is the cat, and it's being shamed, body shamed, for hovering around 6 kg.
Whispers sounds like we're going back to... That's like an electronic tone.
It's eaten too many whispers is the problem, am I right?
Is it an anonymous? It's a good one. It's a good one.
The chocolate bar, John.
Is it really Mr. Whispers?
Yeah.
That could be an anonymous name.
Well,
Mr.
it wasn't anonymous.
Cat. It's not the journalist.
I know, but she might not want to shame Mr. Whispers.
Oh, we got a picture
I see. But it was actually an anonymous author.
Not that
that does look like the ab zone.
It does actually look like he's had tattooed.
That's amazing. So yeah, I mean that's basically the whole story. It's a fat cat, and then the author, who's anonymous, because this is such a shocking story, blames COVID and says that during COVID it would just start jumping up and eating the kids' food, basically. They can only have 200 calories. I was shocked. I mean, that's
it's not very much. But we have a cat, and actually it did put on weight during... It's also because it's neutered as well. When you have them castrated, they become eunuchs, like fat eunuchs in harems. They're a bit fat. But it is true, during lockdown, everyone's at home all the time, and the cat just gets used to sort of working the room, you know. They just know how to make a pain of themselves and get fed. If all the family go out during the day, the cat has to go out and hunt birds or something.
So this is one more victim of COVID. That's terrible. Did you know that half of Britain's cats are obese and there are 50,000 suffering from diabetes?
I know. It's terrible. Finally, Josh, Daily Star, this man is a hop, skip and a jump away from having a desirable detached residence.
Indeed. Man lives in Skip with own Ring's doorbell for £50 a month as it's his only option. So we have a little video here. Let's introduce ourselves to this £50 a month guy.
How much rent you paying in London?
I actually live in a Skip, so it's only £50 a month.
Sweet, can we have a tour?
Harrison, this is my new little house in a Skip.
So it's...
That's not exactly a house in a Skip.
No.
Quite a lot of that house is above that Skip, isn't
On
it?
a Skip.
If you
go in it looks like an eco-pod or something.
Yeah, but he looks like John Ronson.
Yeah, he's kind of a hipster. That's what's disturbing. It's hipsters now doing
it's pretty cool. Anyway, we have run out of time, ladies and gentlemen. We'll leave that running in the background, but the show is nearly over. Let's take another quick look at Tuesday's front pages. The Daily Mail, we will push human rights law to the limit. The Guardian revealed biggest super-emitting methane leaks are threatening the climate. The Times, PM plans annual cap on number of refugees. The Telegraph has block funds for MPs who don't toe line on lockdown. And the Daily Star has the Gong Father, I'll make you an offer you can't refuse. Night, my dad. Well, those are the front pages. If you're waking up this morning, you've encountered those for the first time, we've put in the end at the beginning and the beginning at the end. That's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Josh Howie and Nick Dixon. I will be back with headliners tomorrow at 11 with Scott Capurro and Roger Monkhouse. Another dream team in the making. Remember, if you're watching the 5 a.m. repeat, stay tuned for the breakfast show, which is coming just after the break. If you've wound down with us this evening, thank you very much, and I'll see you again soon. It's been a pleasure. Good night.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners on TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom